For the week of March 21st, I'm participating with other creators on YouTube to help raise awareness of the level of humanitarian crisis happening in Ukraine. 1 million displaced Ukrainian children urgently need your help. We are teaming up with UNICEF, who will be providing humanitarian aid to these children in need. If you have the means, please visit creatorsforpeace.com and hit that donation button to donate what you can. Any amount will go a very long way. Appreciate your consideration and kindness. Thanks for watching. Hey, what's up, guys? Before this episode starts, I just want to give you a heads up that when Blake and I recorded it, it ended up to be too long, like clocking a little bit over 2 hours. So what we decided to do is split the episode up. So this particular episode will be just talking about directing, and the other episode that will be uploaded tomorrow will be the big one talking about best feature film. So if you want to see the continuation of this episode and our conversation, look towards the episode that's going to be uploaded tomorrow. All right, just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that, so enjoy. Hey, what's going on, party people? It is movie time.
Movie time?
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Movie Time. This is the beefiest episode in regards to the Oscars that we're going to be doing. We are going to be addressing director and best feature film. So a lot to talk about here. Let's try not to waste too much time, but I am your co-host, Rene, aka Low-Key Geek, here with my buddy, Blake Wolf, the Wolf.
What how's it going, Rene?
Good. I'm excited to talk about everything we're going to be talking about in this episode, because this is the meat and potatoes here. This is what people are dying to see every year. Who's going to walk away with best director and who's going to walk away with best film overall, right? So, like I said, it's a lot to talk about. So join in the conversation. I'm sure there's going to be tons of opinions out there, people with their own personal favorites, those who want to choose one movie to win over the other. So definitely want to hear all your thoughts about these categories. Let us know in the comment section. And as always, show us some love. Hit that like, smash it, punch it, tickle it, do whatever you want to it. Just as long as you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It really goes a long way for us. And if you want an audio version of this episode, you can find it on the Low-Key Geek channel through your podcast platform of choice. Just look for that and you can download the episode directly from there. So
for every like button we get, I'm going to tweet at Sam Elliott that he was dead wrong for what he said about the power of the dog. So that's my promise to the viewers.
That is probably the best promise anyone could ever give. So that would be, let's make that happen, folks. Come on, let's do it. So let us get into our first category, and that is directing. So let us read down the list here. So you have Belfast, Drive My Car, Licorice Pizza, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. And the directors there, of course, are Kenneth Branagh, Ryusuke Hamaguchi, Paul Thomas Anderson, or PTA as people like to call him, PTA. Jane Campion, and Steven Spielberg. So
is he a new director? I'm not sure if that's how you say his first name. Is it Steven? I've never heard of him before.
I've heard several broadcasts pronounce it Spielberg. I've also heard Spielberg. So I know there's some sort of heritage there. I'm not exactly where from, but it might be pronounced Spielberg. Yeah. And he this is his debut movie. So yeah,
I'm excited. I'm curious what your thoughts are there. I saw the movie. I never heard of him before. Okay.
I don't blame you. I mean, it kind of like came out of left field. So, hey, and look, it's getting lots of mentions everywhere. So it must be doing something right.
Hamaguchi is the tried and true one. Obviously that's this is an exciting. I love these nominees. There's some snubs, obviously. We'll get to those, but this is a pretty stacked list. This is a tough list to crack, which I think it is about every year. Yeah. I'm excited to get into this.
Cool. Awesome. So why don't I start off first here? So just talking about the nominees in general. Yes, I do feel like the big surprise here, but the pleasant surprise, is Drive My Car with Ryusuke Hamaguchi. I don't think anyone was expecting him to be mentioned or nominated in this category, let alone the category we're going to be talking about after this. So I've been praising this movie since I saw it. It's one of those brilliant Japanese movies that came out that not a lot of people have a chance to watch usually, unless you attend a festival, or if you are in one of the major cities, maybe one of the major theater chains may play it when it comes out. You never know. But now it's available on HBO Max, so a lot more people can really watch this movie, and I really hope they do, because it is one of those stories that is really, really well done, and the acting is just phenomenal across the board too. I've been watching Japanese film for a very long time. So I know this director because he did another movie prior to this that was actually, I believe, 6 hours long. And I saw it at like a MoMA, and they even had an intermission and everything. So
Love to see it.
Yeah, I'll definitely, I may do a separate video just to talk about his previous work, because it is definitely worth going back and checking out, because again, what he does well is human drama, human relationships, the complexity amongst that, and emotions and everything like that. I think he does that really well. So that was a big surprise here. I think Paul Thomas Anderson was just, kind of like a legendary nod, just like Steven Spielberg, right? Even though West Side Story has been talked about, I know a lot of people who just thought it was okay. Like, it wasn't like the best movie that they saw last year, but it is Spielberg, right? And I think him tackling his first musical is what brought it to light. And I'll be honest, I think he did a great job, in adapting this story on the big screen. And then you have Kenneth Branagh with Belfast, which a lot of people have been praising. Kind of like a semi-autobiographical, movie about his life growing up there, and the things that him and his family went through. But the one that everyone has been talking about and who's been really getting praised and recognized in the award circuit is Jane Campion with Power of the Dog. So the only movie on this list that honestly I did not see is Licorice Pizza, because when it comes to PTA, it's very hit or miss with me. Watching the trailers, it did look fascinating, and it was something I wanted to see, but I think we'd be remiss to not mention that there is now some controversy because of some portrayal of the Asian nationality within this movie. Granted, you have to kind of put your mindset at the time period, right, where things like this could happen, as far as, kind of racial remarks or whatever, portrayal or what have you, and all that. So I'm curious to hear, because you saw the movie, I'm curious to hear what you have to talk about, what you have to say about it. But that's the only movie on this list I didn't watch. And I think out of everything mentioned here, probably the one that surprises me the most as to why it's here is Belfast, because even though Belfast is a well done movie, I don't think it's a huge standout all of last year. And we'll talk about snubs later, but I do think it could be easily replaced with another director who did another amazing job with another movie. So, Blake, I want to hear your thoughts on the nominees.
Yeah, I saw all of these. This was a category where I didn't have to do any cramming before. I fortunately was just happened to watch these nominees. I think that with Branagh and Spielberg, you have that legacy thing more than necessarily the merits of the movie. That said, West Side Story was an accomplishment even for Spielberg's career. And it's not necessarily, no one's going to put it at the top of the Spielberg rankings, but it was an accomplishment for a highly accomplished director to branch off, do a new thing. And the fact that it wasn't reviled actually, I think, says a lot. Some people said it was okay, or they like the old one better. The fact that people didn't ask for it, because that's when you have such a high quality original property, and then somebody does anything less than pretty great work with the new version, people are demanding their money back and setting the internet on fire.
Right.
we've seen that too many times. So I think that actually the fact that some people aren't like super excited about it actually says a lot.
Yeah.
That it's not like one of those situations on Rotten Tomatoes where it just gets polarized and you get a 0% score or something like that.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and it was even people who didn't like it, it was still an accomplishment no matter what.
Hmm.
And then same with Branagh. I don't think you can necessarily take anything away. It's just if I was going to categorize these, I would say that those are more the legacy picks of people who are very well respected in the industry, have worked with a lot of people, are going to have more sway getting the nomination in the first place. But I don't know
Hmm.
if the majority of voters would say, those are necessarily in the top 5 best achievements for directing.
Yeah.
Belfast, I enjoyed it. I had a good time at the theater. The fact that it's a true story made it a little less just like total Oscar bait. Like that is what happened, and he's
Hmm.
telling that history. It's an important history. It was a powerful family story. The choice to go black and white, I almost think that helps someone nowadays when
Yeah.
you had like The
Yep.
Artist so many years ago, and then you had Cold War a few years ago go that route, and I almost think that it might be a little bit of a cheat code situation. And if that had been full color, I'm not sure if he's on this list. I don't know,
Yeah.
but at Roma a few years ago, like
Right.
that's an interesting trend. I
Hmm.
almost feel like people go, "Oh, this is a movie that needs to be taken seriously. It's in black and white, and it doesn't
Right.
have to be. We have color now in our
Right.
film, so interesting." It's easier to see the director's hand when they make such an obvious decision that affects every single frame. Um,
Yeah. Just like,
that's
and not to interrupt
yeah,
you, like
please.
Mank. Like when Mank came out, like
Another
that was
one.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Good
and then
call.
in the past, The Artist, right? That was another one that they had made that choice to do the black and white route, and it worked in their favor, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I think all of those get people take it a little more seriously, and it has it's a cool effect. I remember when The Artist did it, people were like, "Wait, a black and white?" Like I
Hmm.
feel like that was one where people hadn't seen it, and it definitely made sense with the period they were talking about. This one is the '70s, right? I
Yeah.
might have I might be off on the era,
Yeah,
but
it's like late 60s, 70s, something like that. Yeah.
right? I believe Technicolor had been invented by then. I'm not a scientist or a film historian, but
Right.
it doesn't feel as necessary. It's a cool choice. So that's what I would say about those. I don't think those are serious contenders. I don't think people, if one of those won, it would be, I think, a pretty big surprise.
Yeah.
Drive My Car is a fun one.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things to me with Drive My Car is the fact that it might there's a strong possibility that Worst Person in the World wins international feature, and yet this one is the one that's nominated here. And we'll get to that when we talk about Best Picture stuff. But
Hmm.
I loved it. I had a great time. Everyone's excited about it. I wasn't necessarily moved by it. It was more just like, wow, that was really well done.
Hmm.
Um, the thing, it's almost like what made it so special was how simple it was and how it was executed. 3 hours didn't feel that long. It wasn't clunky at all. And it was a very streamlined, minimalist film, and it was beautiful. It was well done, and it's almost like that is more difficult to make than some big over the top va va voom
Right.
spectacular blockbuster movie. Is a movie where you don't see the seams, where it's like a seamless production.
Mhm.
It was cool. I'm very glad that it ended up getting as much credit as it did.
Yeah.
Um, I I'm not sure what to expect for it in this category. I think that this is almost one of those like happy to be there kind of
Hmm.
nominations. Not a lot of
Yeah.
people expected it, so this might be its best director win is just by being on this list. That said, I wouldn't if people only went based on merit. I could see it winning for sure.
Hmm.
That was a fun one. And then yeah, there's another. You mentioned the possibility of Licorice Pizza as a legacy pick for PTA.
Yeah.
Paul Thomas Anderson. We I I loved that movie. I'm a Paul Thomas Anderson head. As mentioned in prior episodes, I have a Letterboxd account I take very seriously. Paul Thomas Anderson is like the Letterboxd bro, film bro director of this
Yeah.
era. I adored Licorice Pizza. I think he deserves to be a Best Director nominee or winner every year that he's made a film, and historically hasn't done as well as he should with the
Hmm.
Academy, in my opinion. So I'm not sure that this is one You mentioned the controversies there. We can talk about that here or later in the episode. There's that, and then there's also the age gap between the two main
Right.
characters. There's two things
Yeah.
where anyone who's taking PC considerations into consideration for their vote, it's going to get knocked real hard on those two.
Right.
I honestly, it's not my opinion to say because I wouldn't be someone who would necessarily be offended by it from my lived experience. But yes, there's the reason in that era, and he's taking us to that time and saying things were
Hmm.
different then. And but the movie's still released in 2021, and that's why it's on
Right.
this list of nominees. So I don't see that one putting PTA over the top for this category. Um, I guess his last movie to be was Phantom Thread.
Yeah.
That's one where it seems pretty obvious and clear to me that like just give him all the roses on that movie, and then
Hmm.
this one this might be a year where we just kind of take a lap.
Hmm.
What's there's the fifth movie that's obviously Power of the Dog, right? Jane
Yeah.
Campion.
Yeah. Campeon.
Yeah, that's a fun one. What a movie! It's I was reading something earlier today about like, is this the lock of all the major categories? Is this even director more than picture? This
Hmm.
might be the biggest lock. All safe money says Campion. There's been a couple controversies lately, and by now, and by the time this is dropped, especially, I'm sure everyone's read a million think pieces and articles about it, and apologies about the apologies or whatever. But Sam Elliott said some things, and Jane Campion called him a bitch. Which,
Yeah.
if you're coming at Sam Elliott with that, I love that. I think that got a lot of people excited.
Oh yeah.
That was a fun moment. And
Then
then
shortly after, she
just
had that
with
comment with Serena
yeah,
and Venus.
just some stray fire and some totally
Yeah.
unnecessary. Again, it's one of those things like it's not my place to say like whether or not somebody should be offended by those comments, but it was definitely unnecessary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's more of one of those things of like this is someone who was speaking off the cuff at their awards speech, and
Hmm.
in the world that they live in, they didn't even think about these comments beforehand and why that might be troubling. So
Right.
I don't know if the vote. I don't believe that the voting body would say Jane Campion can't win Best Director because of that, and then she issued an apology directly after, and it seemed sincere.
Yeah.
It there are times where like a movie can take such a big hit on the pushback and the backlash. This might be like a backlash to the backlash kind of moment, and I don't know if it's enough because she's such a lock. And like regardless of whether or not um, like not even getting into what you and I think, but getting into what the voting body thinks and how that
Hmm.
affects the actual end result. This is enough of the voting body was there when Green Book won a few years ago. And there's even some stories of people being mad about the potential backlash to Green Book. And so they
Right.
said, screw you. You don't get to tell me how to vote. You don't get to make me feel bad for liking Green Book. I'm going to vote for it twice. That
Hmm.
attitude. And so I don't think that this voting body is going to take that issue seriously enough to take it away from Jane Campion. I wouldn't be surprised if it changed some votes. Which we're doing it at the last minute with the last big pre-Oscar speech. Somebody was talking about she's been speaking off the cuff, and it's one of the fun things about her, kind of like the Olivia Colman's charm, is she goes up to a microphone and you never know what she'll say. But
Right.
they're like, maybe from now on, Jane Campion is very scripted, and we might see her acceptance speech at the Oscars just like reading like a hostage letter, a
Right.
hostage note.
Right.
Just, hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'd like to thank these 17 people, and good night. I'm not sure, but I do. I feel like that's the lock. I I my I'm not proud of this. Drive My Car and The Power of the Dog are the most acclaimed, critically acclaimed cinephile lovers movies of this past year. They might be the one and two choice there.
Hmm.
Neither of them hit me where I reacted strongly to them in the way that some movies give me chills and I'm floored. And like Parasite, when that happened, I was like, oh my God. Like I left the theater completely shaken.
Yeah.
Both of these were okay, that was a very, very well done movie, brilliantly crafted. Both of them were very slow and subtle in their effect on the audience. So it's not necessarily my preference for pick, but if you're just talking about achievement in directing, I'd say that those are a pretty awesome a couple movies to have in here. And then once you compare it to Branagh, Spielberg, and PTA with the competition, this feels like a lock for Jane Campion. In my opinion, regardless of like odds and past winners, which makes Campion a lock. Even if you just compare the films and what we can expect of the Academy, if Drive My Car is a second choice here, then it feels like,
Yeah.
and we were just saying that's a Happy to Be Here nomination. It feels like a lock for Campion.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, everything you said, I pretty much agree with. And we'll go into uh, our who we would love to win and who we think is the lock to win here in a little bit. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. But before we continue, I wanted to quickly talk about Bulletproof Coffee. Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite coffee of choice to start off my mornings with. Why? Because it's clean coffee. What does that mean? Well, one, there are no chemicals in it. Why? Because they go through this multi-step process of making sure that all of their beans are fully clean and free of any chemicals, so that when you get the beans delivered to you, it is the pure beans, the pure coffee, the goodness that you've been wanting, the taste, the flavor, and the nutritional value as well, without worrying about any added chemicals or anything else put into the mix there. It also doesn't have that weird acidic taste that some coffees give you. I don't know how about you, but for me, some coffees kind of give me that weird sensation in my stomach, makes me a little burpy, and it kind of drags me down a little bit instead of really waking me up, which is something that I need from my coffee every day. Bulletproof also offers a lot of keto-friendly snacks and supplements, anything that you need to kind of add to your everyday nutritional needs, add to your diet, and pretty much transforms the way you feel every day. So for a limited time, if you use this code that you see on the screen right now, LOWKEY GEEK, all caps, one word, you can get 15% off your order. So what is it better than that, right? Check out the link in the description of this episode. Use this code, get yourself your discount, and make your mornings a little bit more bulletproof with Bulletproof Coffee. Now, back to the episode. But as I mentioned before, again, there are some snubs that surprised me weren't in this category, that probably could have easily been if you were to take one or two names out of it, right? So let's start with you on that, because I'm sure you have your own list here. Unless you want me to go first. I mean, it's
No, I'm happy to. It's snubs are a fun one to talk about.
yeah.
The main one that comes to mind, and then I'll hand it back to you. But like Guillermo del Toro, right?
Yeah.
For Nightmare Alley. That's one that people talk about. Now, funny enough, like a month before the voting, people were thinking this is a flop. This might not get any nominations, and then it has a great day. And the week before, it was really picking up steam before they announced it. So when I heard it was in as many categories as it was, I was really happy about that. But that said, if you're going to give a historical nod or like a legacy nod to Kenneth Branagh type, give that one to Guillermo del Toro, who definitely deserves it as much. And I think their movie this year was better. I think Nightmare Alley, part of the problem with that movie is you saw it, right?
Oh yeah.
It was. I don't want to say too much here, but because we don't need to spoil it unnecessarily. But it was such an unsettling and upsetting movie, especially the ending. I left there, and my question is, because I have like a little WhatsApp group with my film buddies, and it's always like, "Oh, I just saw this. You guys, have you seen?" And I was like, I don't think I can, in good conscience, recommend this to somebody without saying like, make sure you haven't eaten first. Like, don't eat this. Don't watch this movie after you've had. Like, you're gonna. It was almost nauseating. So I think that hurts the movie. It wasn't a feel good movie, which we see a lot where feel good movies, especially Best Picture stuff, like they'll get in there just because it made people like they had a nice time and told their family to go watch it. And Nightmare Alley has the opposite situation. So I'm not shocked that he didn't get in there. I think the only other one, like there's an alternate universe where House of Gucci gets a nomination here. I want to live in that world. We don't live in that world. It's probably best we don't live in that world. That's too chaotic of a timeline for us to keep up with. Adam McKay, Don't Look Up. That was a possibility. Adam McKay's gotten love here before, and with the Academy, since going from the Anchorman guy to being a serious film director. Big Short, no, not knocking it. Big Short is a big fave of mine. But that's one. I almost am curious on like worst person in the world, how where that finished in the voting. I don't know,
Mhm.
but that would be a fun one to know about, especially with the which we talk about with every category, but the more international voting body putting something like Drive My Car here, and we've seen it before with Bong Joon-ho winning
Mhm.
this category for, and then there was the director of Cold War, which I always miss a syllable in their name, but Pavel Pawlikowski,
Mhm.
them getting a nomination there, like this category, I think is forever altered, and the fact that like at least in the like the cinephile way, in the Cannes film way, like America makes great movies, other countries make great movies also, and
Absolutely, yeah.
they're, especially when it comes to the art of directing and the
Mhm.
concept of the auteur, like that. It, I could see a world where worst person in the world is here, and I'm almost surprised that it's not, but I'm not sure if we've had where when we've had that where there's a couple movies that are in international and over in best director. But
Mhm.
that's, I think that's an exciting aspect to that category. So what about you? Any
Yeah.
thoughts on snubs?
Yeah, so definitely agree with Guillermo, because this is the first time where he put together a movie that had nothing to do with supernatural aspects to it, nothing to do with giant kaiju monsters or whatever have you. Like, this is a dark human story, right? That can be relatable and can actually happen, you know. And you're right, it doesn't end on a happy note at all. It's very depressing. But the way that you do see the main character's trajectory from beginning to end, and how it's almost like a full circle effect, to the point where you could even argue he ends up even worse in life at the end of the movie than when he started, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was just such a well done movie. Plus, you add in the the production of the movie, the cinematography, you know, the brilliant acting, and how he was able to direct the actors to act the way they needed to act, the edits, like everything was just so well done.
Yeah.
It may be, not only is it like his probably most mature film to date, but it could possibly be one of his best that he's ever made so far, you know. At least in my opinion, that's
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
took it. So definitely him. I was shocked to see that he wasn't at least included in this list, because I would have easily taken Brana out and put him in there for sure. Another one on my list is Wes Anderson with French Dispatch. I think if we're talking about maturity, I think French Dispatch was again one of his more mature movies that he's put together, and more advanced movies that he's ever put together. We all know he's very good for his cinematography and his framing and all that, his use of colors, and you know, he mixes black and white with full Technicolor and all that stuff like that. And I think out of all the movies that he's directed, even though this may not be my favorite, I think this is his most advanced movie that he's ever put together on film. And if anything was to be appreciated by that, you know, a director with those choices should be at least acknowledged for that aspect, right? You know, so I would consider him to be somewhat of a snub in this category. The only other one that I would also include here is Denis Villeneuve. I mean, he took a
Yeah.
very impossible task, and you know, people have tried it in the past. Adapt Dune onto the big screen. Now, of
Hmm.
course, Lynch
Great
did it in the
directors. Yeah.
yeah, Lynch tried it in the 80s. It was laughable. It was, you know, not perceived very well. And then I forget the other director who was attached to it, who almost lost his mind while trying to put
Jodorowsky.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It took him, what, years to try to put together some sort of script and
There's a
production and
full
all that.
documentary about
Yeah,
that attempt.
yeah. The fact that this dude just basically almost like lost it just trying to do
Yeah.
this one, you know, production, put it together. I mean, people have failed, and the fact that Denis was able to do it, but not only do it, but you know, kind of do it in a way that served the books well. you know, and that's what I've read a lot, is that people who are familiar with the books appreciated this movie so much because it felt like stuff was pulled from the books, unlike, you know, Lynch's version, which is just a mishmash of all this stuff, you know. And then he took time. You know, he's like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I don't know if I'll be able to make all three, but this is at least part one of my overall trilogy of book one that I'm hoping to do, right? So I think, and you know, like he's proven in the past, like he's done such great movies. I mean, you have The Arrival, you have Blade Runner and all that. And even though like those weren't like perceived as, you know, great fantastical movies at the end of the day, I think it should still be acknowledged that he's continuing to do this, you know, every time he releases something. So yeah, so for me, those three names are the ones that I would have loved to have seen mentioned in this category, because I think we should also take a step back and realize, which I think not a lot of people do, the directing category is really for the movie. It's really for the direction of the movie and how the story is put together. Best feature is really for the producers of a movie. It's really like the whole ensemble of people who've worked on the movie to put that movie together, right? So I think if you look at it in that light, then it kind of gives you a new breath of how to look at the directing category, because it's really for the accomplishment of the movie itself, as far as the storytelling and, you know, the emotion it evokes from you. While best feature is really, well, how well did the producers do their job, right?
Yeah,
You know, and all, yeah. So yeah.
I never really thought about that. That with best picture, you always think it was like, what was the best movie? But no, it's like, if you're asking which one was executed best, as far just the movie aspect, not any of the business or behind the scenes. That's interesting. Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. I'm going to go ahead and say it, even if this was Guillermo del Toro's best movie, Nightmare Alley, and at least most mature. And then I think that and Wes Anderson both are having a tough time on the word of mouth type of thing.
Yeah,
I know French Dispatch, there's some people who are big Wes Anderson fans, and they leave saying that wasn't the Wes Anderson movie that I like. And then if other people who aren't big into the Wes Anderson thing, if that's not their thing, then they might not even go see it in the first place. Somebody made a good point that the movie is really about someone who barely gets any screen time, and there's just like this thread, this needle he's threading throughout the movie. And so some people said, oh, it's just more like 3 short films. That didn't make sense as a cohesive movie. I actually do think that makes it more interesting and more challenging and different, and like you said, mature. The other ones that popped in my head while you were talking, though, Spencer, I like Paolo Larraín, who directed Jackie, directed Neruda. I love that director. I wasn't surprised that it wasn't on the list, but I would like to live in a world where that gets credit for directing. And then the last one I'll mention is Lost Daughter. Maggie for a debut, and this might be almost like opposite ends with the Denis Villeneuve thing. When you're talking about that, I'm thinking some people have said wait till part 2 comes out and it's a complete project, and then maybe we give it the roses, which I don't think you have to wait, but that's, as a narrative, that kind of makes sense. And then with Maggie Gyllenhaal, with obviously the fact that there are so few female nominees in the history of this category, it's a problem. It does not make sense. It does not reflect the how well the films are executed. I watching Lost Daughter, I think that deserves to be on this list, regardless of any other factors. It was Maggie Gyllenhaal's first movie. If she does this level or better work on attempts 2 or 3, then goodness gracious, she needs to be here, because this one, even this year, I personally would feel comfortable knocking out almost anybody else to put Lost Daughter on this category. That was, especially for a first time film, that was very well done.
Yeah, no, I mean, good call on that, because again, like whenever you see someone who comes from the acting world and ventures into directing, it's not always a home run, right?
Yeah.
Or it's not, it's not, or even considered to be, ooh, that was a good attempt. Like, the first one that comes to mind is Angelina Jolie. Like her first movie she directed, I was just like, oh, okay. So that's what we have to look forward to, right? But yeah, when I watch again, and I mentioned it in the previous episode, that movie came out like pretty much the last day of December or the last 2 days of December. It was on Netflix. I wanted to check it out because it was Maggie's first movie she put together, and I I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was really well done for someone who's never done that before. So it was really well deserved. To have that be available for people to watch. It would have been great if it saw some theater time. I think she at least deserved that, but at least to have it on Netflix so that a broader audience can have access to it, I think. And I think that's what really helped, especially like people mention anything about that movie. And, you have Olivia Colman being nominated and you have Jesse Buckley being nominated like that. So I think that's what really helped for sure. But yeah, no, I love that you mentioned that. So with that,
because it wasn't in Best Director, and we won't have a chance to talk about it again. I didn't even. Maggie Gyllenhaal gets a nomination for adapted screenplay for that movie, which I think is interesting.
Okay.
Which was with some of the movies I know with Best Picture, we'll talk about just the other categories that they were in and how well they did this year, and then getting the supporting actress and lead actress for that one. That makes a lot of sense. But were you're about to transition over to Best Picture?
No, I was just gonna say. So, final predictions. What do you think? What is your personal favorite, and who do you think is the lock here?
Personal favorite that's hard for me on this category.
Okay.
The lock to me, I'm going to go ahead and stick with what other people are saying, Jane Campion, and based on just the history going into it, that's the only one that makes sense to me. Favorite, like, it's so tough because historically, Paul Thomas Anderson, and like if you were to go off of career and contributions to film, like Steven Spielberg, I personally, I might just even say screw that. Drive My Car was so well executed as a film, and not doing what most directors do, doing a minimal movie, and it was just so perfectly crafted. I'm gonna go ahead and say that for my personal favorite, even though it's a tough choice. Jane Campion. I'm not mad at all about if she runs away with, and if it wins however many awards. That was an awesome movie. But as far as what I felt hit me the most on my preference of what I like for movies, I'm gonna go ahead and say Drive My Car for this category.
Awesome. You and I share the same sentiments. So my personal favorite is definitely Drive My Car. In a perfect world that I live in, this would be another Parasite situation, I think, for me personally. Like I would love to see, Ryusuke win Best Director and also for the film to win Best Feature. That would just be phenomenal for me. I was touched by this movie because it's like for me, I found it, even though I am no way close to being the type of person that the main character was, what he goes through I can relate to, and those feelings and those emotions, and then trying to drown yourself into your work to kind of get your art out there and cope with everything that you've just experienced, right? And find a way to cope and look back on the life that you've lived and make sense of it sometimes. I can really relate to that. But in total, as a whole, like the movie was just brilliantly put together. Like it was just so well done. But yeah, I do think that I think this is Campion's race to win. There's no way that she's winning all the major awards because of her accomplishment here, right? So I don't see how this won't be the case for this one.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wish we lived in a world where Malcolm Lee gets nominated. They've done movies. They did Scary Movie 5. They did Girls Trip. And they did Space Jam: A New Legacy. And if we're going off of just who deserves to win, then it has to be Malcolm D. Lee. But otherwise, with the nominees we have here, you and I share the exact same. We're on the same page.
Nice. Good call. Yeah, Space Jam. I have a feeling like we have this thing where, how many times can we mention Space Jam 2 in as many episodes as possible, right?
If I had a ballot there, I'm so glad that's not, because I would have just been throwing it in there just for fun. just because I can't help myself.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
I'm sneaking
All right.
into every category. And if there's write-ins on the ballot, I'm gonna get 0 points on Oscar night. I'll just give you my $10 right now because it's just going chalk, just pure down the line. Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Oh my God, that would be so hilarious. I would love that actually. But at the end of the day, doesn't matter what the fuck we think. We want to know what all of you guys think. What are your choices here? Like, what are your favorites from all of last year? Who would you peg to be the main winner in this category, or directing? Because we talked about that earlier. Let us know in the comments, and let's have a discussion and conversation. It's going to be fun to see what happens during awards time. So it's just around the corner. It's just like you said, a week away. So I'm really, really excited and happy to see what's going to happen. And stay tuned to the channel because we are going to have an episode where we fill out our Oscar ballots and we compare our list. And we are going to cover the smaller categories because I do think they are still very important and they should be recognized for sure, even though the Oscars themselves don't think so. But stay tuned to the channel for that, and stay tuned to the channel because we may be doing a live reaction broadcast of the entire award ceremony. Stay tuned to the channel for details on that as Blake and I try to figure out the logistics behind it. But if we do pull it off, I think it'll be a lot of fun. And if anything, if we don't get to do that, maybe we'll do like a quick live reaction after the show is done to kind of talk about the show as a whole. So, but yeah, the best way to keep up to date with all of that is to subscribe to this channel, y'all, and hit that notification bell so you'll get notified every time a new video is uploaded and what have you. So any final comments or thoughts about best film, directing, what have you?
Just quickly shouting out in the comments from our last video or 2 videos ago, we were talking about actor and actress. People definitely getting dirty about the getting down and dirty into it with the Will Smith situation. Find me in the comments. I will be replying and I will be trolling people too. I have no shame. I happen to agree with just about everything everybody said, but I still might just throw out some controversial opinions anyway, just to muddy the waters a little bit. Other than the comment section underneath this video, you can find me. I'm on Letterboxd. All the movies that I mentioned earlier with the ones that were underseen, I rank every single movie that I see as soon as I see it. I'm at 2,600 now or so. I have lists of favorite movies. I love that app, and it's just another app that a lot of people, not enough people use, but it's like Goodreads for movies. I love that thing, and I need more people should be on there. On there, my screen name is Blake Wolf, BlakeWolf SSN, like Blake Wolf's screen name. And please follow me on Letterboxd. I need to get my numbers up.
There you go. Like I said in previous episodes, let's get him to at least 19. Come on. He's only 2 away. 2 away. This could happen, y'all. This could happen.
All my friends need to be on this app. It's such a cool app. I love it. The user interface is actually great, but I'm obsessed with it. Logged everything on there. Come through. Find me at Letterboxd or the comments below.
No, definitely. And it is a great app and tool to use as a film lover in general, because you get to keep a log of all the movies you've watched, create your own list and what have you. So definitely a cool app. I should be utilizing it more, but I'm glad that Blake is taking full advantage of that. As for myself, Lowkey Geek, you could follow me. Everything that you see on screen or in the description of this episode. Instagram, Twitter, what have you, and of course the Lowkey Geek channel. Don't forget, subscribe, like, notification bell, all that good stuff. And if you want audio formats of these episodes, you could find it on your podcast platform of choice on the Lowkey Geek channel there, and you could download all of these episodes plus additional stuff that is uploaded throughout the week. So with that being said, I'm Rene. That's Blake. This has been fun. We'll catch you next time. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and bye.
See you on the red carpet.
Da 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 da.